I was raised a Mormon, but now I have no standards on friendships. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I'm Raphael and I'm here to review episode 2 of the Real Frosty Friendships of Salt Lake City. So we start the episode off with Whitney, and she's in the kitchen with her husband. They're both talking about their schedule today, and she's like, so are you busy today? Like, what's your schedule looking like? And he's like, yeah, I'm completely swamped. I can't really do much. My whole schedule is booked. And she's like, wait, my schedule is booked too, so who's gonna pick up our child from school? Like, what's gonna happen there? And then Brooks comes out of nowhere. I'm assuming he's just waking up. And I'm also thinking, is the name Brooks a very common name in Salt Lake City? I mean, you know, it's already interesting that we have one son on the show named Brooks, and then we have another one here. So, you know, just maybe it's just a big coincidence. So anyway, so he gets to the table and she's like, hey Brooks, mommy's busy today, so you're probably gonna have to walk home from school. And he gave her those demon eyes. He was looking at her like, I'm about to get my Chucky doll and send him after you, Whitney. Don't fuck with me. Give me a car service or do something. Give me a Uber. That's exactly what his entire look looked like. I'm like, Whitney, can you give him some milk and cereal before he tries to do some damage in this house? But you know, I'm also curious too, because I'm like, okay, if he walks home, isn't there just a bunch of snow around everywhere? Like, aren't you concerned that he might trip and fall or break his ankle, you know, something? You know, call a Uber, call a Lyft. I'm pretty sure there's a bus running somewhere. And then we get a look at Meredith's twin, Lisa, and she's over at her house and she's checking up on her boys, on her sons. She's walking around, she sees one of them in the bathroom. I'm not sure what he was doing. I'm like, Lisa, if you don't get in there and check what he's doing, I'm like, is he shaving his hair? Is he dyeing his hair? I mean, isn't he like 8? And he was doing something to his hair. I'm like, maybe he's just shampooing it or something in the sink. And then she goes over to her older son and he's just in the room and she's like, honey, can you please clean the room? You need to clean up, honey. And I'm like, Lisa, if you don't put some bass in your voice, like, you know, like toughen up a little bit. If you don't get your stuff together and put those pillows away and fold up those blankets nicely and clean this room up. It smells like dirty socks in here and dirty boxers. Hurry up. You know, I'm like, Lisa, come on, like, put a little strength behind your words or else they're not going to take it serious. Then we head over to Mary's house and she's going into her son's room, which I thought that room belonged to Giselle from the Real Housewives of Potomac with all the Gucci and the tackiness. I'm like, is this Giselle's room? Did we just transfer over to a different city? Like, what's going on here? You know, it's Gucci, Gucci, Gucci everywhere on the bed. I'm like, I didn't know they even make sheets like that. But regardless, you know, her son is in bed. He's laying down. Mary is just walking around. She's opening the little fridge that he has in there. And she's like, you know, son, I really don't think that Jesus will really like you just eating yogurt and chips and just soda or whatever. I really do think that Jesus wants you to drink and eat nutrition. You no more chips, okay? Because we are people from God, okay? So in this family, we will not eat chips. Then we head over to Jen's house and she's in her closet and I'm like, uh-oh, this is not looking good for you. They're giving her the Erica Jane treatment by zooming in on every single thing in that closet that's expensive. I'm like, oh, Jen, this is not looking good. And she's like, you know, I have my 1,000 assistants here and her nephew. There's a bunch of assistants in there helping her, you know, try to sort out the clothes. She's like, you know, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. The nephew's like, you know, maybe you should just give it away because charity or whatever. And I'm like, ooh, Jen, if you do have a, you know, a little giveaway or whatever, I know you might go to jail, but, you know, I'll take a nice pair of shoes. From you, maybe 1 or 2. I won't tell nobody. And she's like, you know, my nephew, he's like another son to me. I'm like his mom, kind of. And, you know, I'm just really reflecting on my entire behavior because Ramadan is coming and she's saying that she's Muslim. And she's like, I just really need to reflect on being a better woman, a better wife, a better everything in general. And she's like, you know, he reached out to me because he wanted to move out of South Central. And I never reached back out to him, but now I eventually did. And now he's living with me. And it's so funny and strange watching this scene and trying to see Jen open up and, you know, have a heart and try to change and everything and saying that, oh, you know, I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to be a good person in life. But I'm like, you know, with everything that we know about her that's been going on in the media and that we'll eventually see, you know, play out with the cops and the whole scheme and the money plots and everything. It's just like, oh, Jen, how can you just sit there and say all of this knowing that you're doing like dirt behind the cameras, allegedly, you know? Like, how can you just sit there and, you know, want to be a better person, but knowing that you're taking all this money from people behind closed doors. So continuing on her path of becoming a better person, Jen decides to call Heather. And we all know that Heather and Jen are not on speaking terms right now, especially after everything that's happened at the reunion with Jen posting certain things about Heather online, saying, oh, you're not really gonna be an actress. The only actress you're gonna ever be is if you play Shrek. And, right there at Shrek, you would have had me and that whole friendship would have been done, because I'm like, wow, you're calling me Shrek? Not Fiona, not Donkey, not the fairy godmother, but Shrek? like, I would feel some type of way. And here comes Heather answering the phone call. If I was Heather, I would have been like, oh, somebody's calling me. Oh, it's Jen Shaw. Anyways, my nails are so pretty. What color should I do them today? Oh, she's still calling. Anyways, la 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 la. There's just no way that I would have picked up the phone call from Jen right away. I mean, Heather was ready. I mean, she had her keys in her hands and everything. I mean, she had her snow boots. She was like, Jen, if you want to meet up right now, I am ready. Let's do it right now. I'm ready for this rekindling of these friendship. I'm ready to film, I'm like, damn, Heather. And what's crazy is that her face was so close to the camera. She was like, hey, Jen. I'm like, can you back up a little bit? Damn, it's FaceTime. And Jen tells her, hey, Heather, hey, how are you? So like Andy told me that, that we should film this scene later today and, to like talk about our friendship and stuff, and they'll have camera people there too. So we can talk and everything. But yeah, I didn't do this out of the goodness of my heart. It was only because it was TV produced and Andy told me to. And he said that I'll get a raise if I reach out to you. So what do you say? And then here comes Heather saying, yeah. I'm like, Heather, come on now, play hard to get, say, oh, Jen, I might be able to go out with you later, maybe, but I need to check my schedule. But no, Heather was just like, yes, I am ready. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready too. Like, let's go now if you want. So they agreed to meet up. And then we head over to Meredith's house, and then she gets a phone call from Brooks, the friend of the show. And she's like, hey, Brooks, how are you? I'm here right now playing with the stones to get inspiration. Yes, I'm right here. How are you? And where are you? And what's everything? And what's been going on? Like, how's life? Like, did you eat today? And then Seth, her husband, he comes in wearing somebody's panties and he's like, hey, everybody, hey. And, he's like, oh, I was expecting a bigger orgasm. I'm not sure if he was expecting it from the dog or from Meredith, but, either way, he's there. And Meredith is like, he pressured me to go into Ohio last year so much. Like, he wanted me to go there so badly and to move over there with him. And I'm just glad that I didn't, because now we kind of see each other more often. And, we're in a much more happier space, and they kiss each other. And I don't know, it's just something about them, it just doesn't. Maybe it's just because I see them for what they were on season 1. And it just comes off so forced. And I'm like, do y'all really love each other? But then again, maybe this is just, their relationship. And Meredith is a little bit, cold. And that's probably just, her behavior. And then they're sitting down, and then they have a flashback because they're talking about Brooks again. And then she's like, yeah, Jen has been liking and posting a bunch of homophobic things about Brooks. And then they flash back again to her having a conversation with Brooks. And Brooks is like, yeah, she's been liking a couple stuff that, saying that maybe like she needs to slap me because I'm a sissy ass bitch. I'm like, ooh, that's not funny. But I'm like, damn, Brooks, and I completely get it. Now, at first I'm like, okay, if we all put our feelings aside for Brooks, because majority of the audience thinks that Brooks is kind of annoying. He's so snobbish, from what we see in the first season. We get it, but he's still growing. Maybe he'll change. He's probably in that weird phase in his life and certain age or whatever. And if you put that aside, right, I do agree with Meredith. I mean, Jen is liking and doing all this online about Brooks, and that's not right. I mean, I can never see myself, if I was in Meredith's shoes, ever being friends with Jen, because you're talking about somebody's child. It's just, there's no going back from that. It doesn't matter if you think it's funny or, throwing shade or whatever, or even if he is gay, but he hasn't announced it. Who are you to say that? And she's telling Zeph, she's like, yeah, our son has not, labeled himself as anything. And Seth looks so confused. He was there like, wait, he's not gay? Oh, okay, continue. And he was like, wait, what? What do you mean? But I agree with Meredith. And Meredith's like, Look, Jen is just gonna keep pushing my buttons and just gonna keep pushing my buttons until I explode on her and everything. It's just, I just feel like I'm gonna call the police on her. I really do think that that's what's gonna happen. And I don't know. It's just something in me is telling me, I feel like maybe I should go play with my jewelry to calm me down a little bit. But again, I agree with Meredith because Jen, if somebody was to do that about any member in her family, like if Meredith was to post something on Twitter or Instagram or anything online about her nephew that we just saw this episode, Jen will lose it. Jen will go ballistic. So it's just like, Jen, you shouldn't be doing certain, behaviors online or in general that you wouldn't want done to you or your family or your loved ones. And then we head back over to Mary's house, and Mary's house looks like one big, giant, huge garage sale in Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it's so much to look at, and people could say that it's tacky or too much, but I don't know. I kind of like seeing the big, huge furniture or big, huge things that you wouldn't really typically see in somebody's house, like you really have to be very specific about certain items in Mary's house. And she brings over her family member who's there to help her, do some construction work around the house. And she just continues to trash him in her confessional where she looks like Cruella de Vil. She's like, yeah, he's so slow. He's a fucking disgrace. He's disgusting. I'm not inviting him over for Thanksgiving. He's a slow man, and he just really shouldn't be even here anymore at all. I'm not even going to pay him, nor am I going to tip him, or am I going to feed him or anything. I'm not even going to give him a bottle of water. I'm like, damn, Mary, like... I'm like, wow, this is your family member that you're talking about. And she's like, oh, he can never do anything right. It's always just, it takes like 6 years for him to do anything. And I'm like, wow, and if my memory is correct, doesn't she have last season, didn't she have one of her family members be like her maid or something around the house? So I'm like, I wonder how she treats her family off, off of cameras. And she's also telling us that, she's been in the house for so long, it feels like she's been trapped, kind of like a marriage. And then she's like, oh, it was stale. And then in the confessional, she's like, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. And I'm like, what are you trying to say? I mean, have you and your relationship with your granddaddy husband, has that gotten stale? Do you not want to be with him anymore? Because I don't think we've seen him so far. I mean, it's only episode 2, but we haven't seen him. And her excuse is that he's stuck, in Florida or somewhere else or whatever she said. But regardless, she sits down with her family member and she's like, my son, I told him, like, eventually when he starts dating that if, the girl could be beautiful, she could be all this and all that, but if she smells like fish, run. And I'm like, what? I'm like, all right. And that has been dating with Mary. So then we have Lisa and Jenny, and they're heading over to Jen's house, and they're going over there to, chit-chat, to have snacks. And Lisa, on the other hand, she gets there and she's like, hey, Jen, I bought sewing machines because I thought that we'll try out for RuPaul's Drag Race the next season, and we'll kind of do like a mini challenge and make our own outfits and wear them out. And Jen is like, no. Like, we could barely cook, let alone sew, so I'm not sure what you're up to. And they're all sitting down, and, Jen is basically like, I understand, Lisa, that me and Meredith, we're not in the best position right now, but I have apologized 100 times about the marriage and about, saying certain things about her and Zeph. And Lisa's like, well, that's not necessarily what the issue is specifically. It's the issue between you, Brooks, and Meredith. So that's what you really should apologize. And then Jen freaks out and she's like, I just don't understand why I have to apologize so much. I just don't understand it. It's always fucking me. It's always me, me, me. Do I have to make apologies in 100 different languages? And I'm like, but Jen, you were the hot mess of season 1. You're always the one causing shit between everybody and spazzing out and everything. So I'm not sure, like, what are you not looking at? Did we not see season 1 when you were constantly, having your meltdowns, your tantrums, So what do you expect? People are just not going to gloss over that and just be like, oh, okay, fine. It's just Jen. No, some people could, hold you accountable, and you just don't want to be held accountable for any of your actions, let alone the stuff that you're posting on your Instagram or Twitter or online or whatever. Because her excuse is, well, the things I said about Brooks or the things I reposted were just funny. It's funny. It wasn't anything mean. But I'm like, okay, to you it may have been funny, but to Brooks or to Meredith's family, that may not have been funny. It may have come off very hurtful. So, Jen, you're not really making sense right now. You're deflecting the situation instead of just saying, you know what? I'm gonna give Meredith what she wants, and I could see why this would look wrong, and I could see where she will be upset with me. So let me just apologize to her and her son sincerely, and then that'll be that. Then we get Heather and Whitney together, and they go to this thrift shop that's expensive, and they're like, oh my God, we're like wearing the same thing basically. And I'm like, oh, that's nothing to be proud of. Both of you look a hot mess. But regardless, they, decide to go shopping around. I love this little montage of them, shopping around and trying on different clothes with the music in the background. It felt like an early 2000s movie. I'm like, oh, this is cute. This is, adorable. They sit down eventually to have some wine because the woman was like, do y'all want wine? I kind of want to, loosen y'all up so y'all can loosen up your, your credit cards and everything because we need all the money we can for this store. So they sit down and then Heather's like, so Whitney, guess who FaceTimed me earlier? And Whitney's like, Andy? Andy's not renewing your contract for season 3? Are you not going to hold a snowflake next season? Who is it? And then she's like, no. I think I'm coming back next season, but I just need to play up this whole, thing with Jen. So it was Jen who FaceTimed me, and Whitney's face said it all. Whitney was just like, like she was so not amused at all. She was just like, okay, what happened? Because you know that after the relationship between you and Jen, I had to pick you up off the floor, and that wasn't easy, and you were so shattered and so broken and everything. So what is going on here, Heather? Like, you know what Jen's business and what her game is. So what are you doing? And Heather's like, no, like, it's different this time, I promise. Like, she's not toxic, but I kind of like that toxic type of relationship. I'm like, ooh, Heather. Like, maybe some people are attracted to that. So who knows? People are attracted to chaos sometimes. And she's like, no, I promise Jen has changed this time. It's going to be different. We're just going to meet up for lunch later. And Whitney's like, okay, but I'm just saying that playing with Jen is like playing with a roulette. You never know where it's going to land. And then we head over to Jenny's house where she's in the kitchen cooking dinner with her 2 sons and her daughter. And her daughter is exactly like Jenny. I mean, the same personality. She's so bubbly. She's so, excited to be anywhere. And she's like, oh, I have a joke for you. And Jenny's like, oh, yeah, it was funny. But I love the little girl. She's so adorable. I'm like, oh, I like seeing the little dynamic between her and the family. They eventually sit down to have dinner, and she's explaining her confessionals and saying that, when I was, years ago, I used to have so many operations open and so many businesses. And, I kept opening one by one by one. And I kept thinking, what was it all for if I'm not going to be spending time with my family? So I sold it, and now I spend all the time with my family. So I like that aspect of Jenny. I think that was a very smart decision because sometimes, you could have all the money in the world and you still won't have enough money to buy you time to spend with your family. And what I found interesting is that the husband, Dewey, he's like, oh, he's asking the little girl, oh, do you want a baby brother or baby sister? Like, there's a lot of space at this dinner table. Maybe we need to fill it up. And Jenny lets us know that in the Vietnamese culture that the more children or the bigger your family is, that the more, status you have, I guess, or the more richer you look. But I'm curious to know if Dewey specifically wants a child for status and to look rich to the family or to people, or does he specifically want a child, just to bond with Jenny and just to have another offspring in the family. So then we end up at Whitney's house, and she's explaining to her children and to her husband that, she's kind of busy and she's all over the place and she doesn't really have too much time on her hands. She tells her children to go upstairs because her and her husband are about to get down. And then they go into the living room and she explains to him, babe, like, I just feel like my company is growing so quickly and rapidly, and I don't want our relationship to get stale, I don't want it to like lose the spark that we once had, I don't want to feel like I'm detesting you. I don't want to hate you in the end of the day, like I don't want anything to come between us. And I love that Whitney's bringing up that subject because, sometimes in relationships, the spark that you once had at the beginning, it does kind of fade over time if you don't continue that momentum that you also had when you first began, like the relationship will get dry and eventually you'll be like, what am I in this relationship for? And I love that Whitney's, saying that because maybe by her being vocal by it, maybe something will change between them. And hopefully it does because it seems like both of them are cute together. And then she says, she's like, yeah, babe, it's just, I really want us to be together and everything, but I'm talking about sex. I need sex. And, like, no, no, no. I want it to go back to how it used to be. That nasty butt naked sex. The one with chocolate and oil all over our bodies. That real filthy sex where I feel like a whore. That's what I want. And he just turned all types of red. Like, you could tell that he was blushing with the camera people right in front of him. And then she's in the confessional. She's like, it used to be like every other hour that we would have sex, and now, it's just 2 to 3 times a week, and it's just kind of like robotic sex. And then the producer did the producer was like, so what the hell is robotic sex? And then Whitney proceeds to explain and to show us what robotic sex is. Oh, Daddy, yeah, Daddy, I like it. Yes, you're hitting the spot. Oh my God, yes, I'm about to finish. Yes, oh, please give it to me more, more, more. Oh, yeah, yeah, I really like it, Daddy. I do. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. I'll FaceTime you later. That's my husband back there. Yeah, he's about to finish on my back. Yes, yes, yes. And continue, Daddy. Go. Are you almost there? Ugh, come on. Ugh. And then she explains that before things got dry between her and her husband, that things used to be a little bit more heated in the bedroom. I'm your little slut. Yeah, I'm your blonde slut. You like it, huh? You want me to call myself Veronica? Okay, my name is Veronica. Yes, you can call me that all night, Daddy. Oh my goodness, the things you're making me feel right now, babe. Continue, please. You know what? I'm gonna give up my whole company because this is too much. Whew. More, more. So hopefully by Whitney being vocal about this issue, her and her husband will find the spark between them again. So then we finally get the meetup between Heather and Jen. And we don't get a typical meetup, somewhere to eat dinner, at a bar, at a restaurant, none of that. We get a meetup at this giant castle, Elsa's castle to be exact. There's a huge igloo made of ice and snow, and I'm like, wait, like since when do we do meetups like this in giant igloos? But I mean, I guess it's, Salt Lake City, so whatever. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. Like, if I was Heather and I was pulling up to this and this is where we're meeting up and our friendship is not, on the best terms, I am making a U-turn quickly because I'm not sure what is waiting for me inside this ice wall. So no. But Jen and her assistant, they're trying to find a spot to meet up at, and he slips and falls and almost breaks his neck. She is dressed so nicely too, by the way. I love her fur jacket. I love her fur hat, her shoes. Everything about her look was really nice. Eventually she goes inside and Heather shows up, and Heather, typical typical horror movie stereotype. She's like, this is where we're meeting up. It looks kind of scary. I'm gonna go in. And then we see Jen sliding down a hill of ice, and she's like, hey, I'm here, way to make an entrance. And they eventually go inside the igloo. Nobody falls, nobody trips. They go inside this little, room of ice, and there's fire in the middle. And the whole thing was just looking sketchy. I'm like, if I was Heather, I would have been like, I would have had an ice pick or something in my hand. But they eventually, get to talking, and Heather's like, Jen, I really feel some type of way that you call me honey boo boo. I'm like, now why we gotta put honey boo boo into this conversation? And Jen is terrible for saying that. In typical Jen fashion, Jen starts deflecting the whole situation and starts shutting everything down. She's like, no, 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 no. I may have called you Honey Boo Boo and Shrek, but you said this, this, and this, and this about me. You said I was aggressive and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you see, Jen, you just don't listen. The minute that somebody says something to you, you take it so personally. And the reason why I could say that about Jen is because I'm the same way as Jen. I completely understand what she is feeling in this situation, because the minute that somebody says something to me like that, I started deflecting as well, and I started getting defensive, and that's exactly what Jen is doing. She gets so defensive so quickly, and I get it. It's a work in process, and it's not easy to try to just take ownership of something that you've done, and I wish that she would just see it from a different perspective, but she's like, no, like, this is not right, I always feel attacked because me as a brown person, this is what I've always felt. And I wonder what do y'all think? Do y'all think that her excuse is legit, or do y'all think that she's just picking at straws just so she could have some type of battle in this fight with Heather and the rest of the group? Because she's like, I keep getting picked on, I keep getting picked on, I keep getting picked on. But at the same time, I'm like, Jen, you're the one throwing these temper tantrums all the time. We saw season 1, where we saw everything that you've done and everything that you said. So it's just like all the women on the show really are walking on eggshell when they're dealing with you. And that's what Heather said too. She's like, yeah, we're all kind of basically scared of you, except maybe Mary. Like Mary is probably not scared of Jen, but you know, they're all for the most part like, oh, you can't say certain things around Jen because then she's gonna get upset, then she's gonna come at us, and then she's gonna, you know, go online and post some really mean stuff about us. And I'm trying to see it from Jen's perspective because I can see why she will feel attacked if multiple people are coming at her like, oh, you need to apologize, you need to apologize, you need to apologize. I can see that, but at the same time, I always feel like Jen is the person that starts these little issues and then she just escalates them to 100, you know? So I'm not sure. Eventually, they kind of talk it out and it's kind of awkward. Jen starts crying and she starts getting emotional. Heather, you know, she buys into it. And this is exactly what Whitney warned her not to do, like to fall for Jen's antics, because Jen proceeds to start crying and making herself out to seem to be the victim all of a sudden. And she's like, you know, I hate feeling like I'm always attacked, and it's just you guys just keep coming at me like this, like for no reason, and I just don't understand. I always have to apologize to everybody. And then Heather's eventually like, so this feels like a breakup. You know, I never had a boyfriend, so are we not gonna, you know, go out to the movies tonight? Or are you breaking up with me? Or like, what's going on? Eventually, they kind of rekindle their friendship a little bit, sort of. Not really, but sort of. You know, it's a step in process, I guess. And what had me laughing so hard was once they were done with the conversation, Jen was like, oh, you know, I have churros here. I'm gonna put them right there in the fire. So she throws a churro in there in the fire and it goes up in flames. And Heather's like, are you supposed to put a churro in the fire like that? And Jen was like, I don't know. I replayed that part like 4 times. I thought it was so hilarious. Because then Heather proceeds to take the churro with her glove, and Jen's like, no, 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 your glove is gonna go on fire. Be careful. I'm like, this is why we do not film in igloos like this. But you know, they cheers to a churro, a burnt churro, and they're like, okay, let's see where this friendship goes, and that's that. And that was the episode, y'all. What did y'all think about this episode? What did y'all think about Jen and her relationship with Heather and Meredith? Do y'all think that she's in the wrong? Do y'all think that they're in the right, or both of them are wrong? Like, what do y'all think? I don't know, it's a sticky situation because I don't want to make it seem like everybody's gaining up on Jen, but at the same time, I need to see ownership from everybody, I guess, if they all want to be, you know, best friends or whatever. But that's that, y'all. Again, let me know what y'all thought about this episode, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Bye, y'all. Mwah.